And my first startup, I like within the first 3 months, there was like my CMO was no longer there. We had some interim like head of marketing. That person put an ultimatum to the CEO, end up getting fired. And I'm just like, holy crap, all this change was happening in front of me within 3 months. Like it was a whole different team. And I saw it as opportunity, not as like, this isn't bad. This is a good thing for me. And I just proved myself through it all, earned the CEO's trust. It all happened within 3 months. And at that point, I was kind of gold to him. I couldn't do anything wrong. Right.
Welcome to Adapt or Die, real stories behind leaders' biggest pivots. My name is Andreas Pedersen. You're listening to our Power Without Permission miniseries. It's still the same 3 acts, the breakdown, the new raw stories designed to move you, the listeners, from challenge to action. Today's guest is a very close friend of mine and a former colleague, Alyssa Trenkamp. Welcome so much to the show, Alyssa.
Thanks. Glad to be here. It's going to be fun.
Let's go. Let's dive straight into it. So paint me a picture, or paint the listeners a picture of those 5 minutes before a pivotal moment in your career, in your personal life. What is going on? Who is in the room? And what will break if things just keeps going as they were currently going? And what is going through your mind?
All right. So I'm sitting in the office one-on-one with my CEO at the time. And this is my first startup experience, right? And I'm nervous, right? My heart's racing. I have just had heard that like 3 women on my team have kind of run through his office with a litany of complaints about my leadership, just their grievances on things and how things are going. And I'm feeling kind of under pressure. And this is a company that I've been with for 5 years at this point. We're 1 year away from acquisition. I didn't know that at the time, of course, but I I've built a lot at this company. I've built a great relationship with the CEO, and I don't really want to give all that up, right? And sitting at my desk at this point in time is another offer from another company. So I'm sort of at that point where I'm like, man, I could take the easy route and just leave this company, or do I really want to fight for what I have here? And I really decided that I wanted to fight. And so I'm in front of my CEO. He's asking me like, "Tell me your side of the story. What's going on here?" I'm hearing that these women are kind of frustrated. And I was like, "Look, I was kind of plain and simple about it. Um, I didn't want to necessarily like play that. You know how you get in that, I think you even said this, it's like corporate daycare. It's like a daycare
Hmm.
experience where there's this like he said, she said sort of thing. I was like, I'm not gonna go there. So I just took
Drama.
the high road and said, look, I have some fault here, but here's what's going on. Laid it out plain and simple. And my CEO immediately was like, okay, I see what's going on here. I have your back. We're gonna manage them out of the business. No, you don't need to say another word. And in that moment, there was just this huge relief. I realized like this CEO had said to me numerous times, like, I want you on this journey with me. And in that moment, his actions spoke louder than his words, and it really meant the world to me. And I felt from that point forward just so much conviction in that decision and what I built. Was so glad I didn't just take the easy route and that I was fighting for what I wanted. So it's a career defining moment for me and a story that ended up being one of my best startup journeys. And I am just, grateful to that CEO, grateful to that experience because it did tell me a lot about myself.
Where did you get the bravery, the guts to have the conversation instead of taking the easy way out?
Well, I mean, I'd fought for a lot in this career and I didn't want to give it up, right? So at the end of the day, there was a lot that built up to this conversation, right? And I had this feeling that I kind of had to go it alone. Like at this point, I was reporting to the CEO and I didn't want to like bother him with a complaint. And so I was sort of leading alone, and leadership can be really lonely at times, right? And so I didn't want to bring it to him and kind of, I was like, I can handle this myself. And so I was using that like, okay, you got to rumble sort of tactic and you got to like air out your grievances and let your team air out their grievances so that you can move forward in a productive fashion, but nothing was working, right? And at some point I probably should have realized I can't go this alone and gone to him directly, but instead they did, which in some ways worked in my favor because I didn't look like the one kind of raising this issue. It was them, and it became very clear what was going on to him. But I should have probably managed it sooner, because it wasn't right of me as a leader to let that toxicity last in the organization for so long. And I probably should have made it, like, brought him into it earlier. But I think at the end of the day, it was a scary situation. I was early in my career and I was nervous, but I had fought for this career, so I didn't want to give that up.
I absolutely want to point out here for the listeners that Alyssa is a phenomenal leader. And as long as I have known her, a really, really, really good people leader and business and strategic leader. And I can imagine that even at that time in your career, you're always been very open and approachable. How come you think that they went to the CEO instead of trying to work it out with you?
So I don't know. I was a fearless leader, right? I'm a fearless leader. I am also sort of I have like an unwavering confidence. And in this situation, it was working in my favor. Like, I was thriving in startup world because anytime someone presented a challenge to me, I was like, I can manage that. And I took it on with amazing confidence. And I think to some I was a bit of a threat because I just was who I was. And it was and these women probably were, I think they were good people. They were really good people. They just wanted to have their own leadership and opportunities at this company and were probably seeing me a bit as of a threat, right? So they were looking for a place for themselves as leaders and wanted to sort of, I'm not sure what was going on with them individually, but, um, I think ultimately that was probably what drove them to sort of react the way they did. Because I was opening every door to create healthy conflict and dialogue and was still met with a lot of resistance from them, and the 3 of them were clearly, like, forming an alliance. Like, this happens in corporations. It happens all the time. It's not
All
This
the
is the
time.
only time that it's happened to me, and the sad thing is when the strong leaders end up on the wrong side, and I could have so easily ended on the wrong side. But I think as a you gotta, like, have confidence in yourself and know that I don't know. I in this situation, I really felt like it was hard, but I did the right thing. I pushed through and didn't give up. And the
Yeah.
company didn't
And
want me to give up. So as soon as my CEO realized that this was going on, he was immediately had my back.
we're going to talk a little bit about male and women allyship here, and but before we go into that, I just want to again point out you are a person that is always curious. You're always open to feedback, and even though you have in like a very very high level of confidence,
Mm.
I have still seen you where you play that narrative in your head, and it's not like you're second guessing yourself, but you're constantly uh, you're wondering, can it be seen from this way? Can it be done in this way? This curiosity. So for the listeners, important to point out here, some people with too much confidence don't always listen. Alyssa always take the time and listen, and you always values people's input. But Alyssa, let's pivot here. Any comments on that, by the way? Or
No, I think you're right. I mean, we can all be better listeners, but I definitely do try to listen and hear, and I think that's how you develop great relationships and build and break through kind of tough things. Like in this case, if I had been able to break through the walls with these 3 women, I probably could have formed a really great relationship with them and built something great with them, but it felt like they weren't willing to do that with me, and sometimes you have to realize that's the case, as sad as it is, you know?
let's talk a little bit about male and women allyships here and sponsors. When we were writing the book, Power Without Permission, go
Mhm.
to leadersadapt.com/book, and it's launching on September 25th. I remember you and I had a conversation about what's your experience with women and male allyship. And you said something very positive. Do you remember what we talked about?
I don't remember. Sorry, you might have to jog my
Now,
memory on this
you
one.
were very clear that you had been very fortunate to always have very good leaders, and you always had a lot of people that were allies with
Mm,
you, and
mhm.
that you were always working with people that had your back. And I think this story is just that example. I think, however, you don't just end up in that situation. You don't have that luck. So, what is it that you do? What is it that you sort of don't compromise in order for you to end up in those situations where you have a lot of people believing in you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think allyship is just male. It can be female too, right? And I've had some great female allies as well. So it just happens that a lot of times, as sad as it is, a lot of people in powerful positions at a company tend to be on the male side, especially when you're in B2B technology. And that's where I spent my whole career. But I have had some amazing female allies too. And I think it's just as important for females to be allies for females, and actually maybe more important because it's so often we're not, and it's really sad. But I would say, I don't know, I just have a grit about me, a drive, and I just tackle things with unbridled confidence, like I said, and I earn trust through the work I do, through I manage work, and I'm just someone you want on your team, you know? And I'm a good leader, so I motivate and inspire others as well, right? I build relationships, I drive great work with my teams, and it's pretty obvious, and then through that, I'm just someone people want on their team, right? So, as, like, a critical person, I think that's sort of helped me build allyship, and that relationship approach, and just building great relationships through great work, and kinda getting in the thick of it, rolling up your sleeves with your going through the hard stuff, you know? It's all in the middle of the journey, you know, where all this stuff happens and you build those relationships, and they're really lasting, that relationship currency, and it carries you from one company to the other. Because I can't tell you how many times I've worked with the same people over and over again. Like, you end up with these people again and again, the people you trust, the people you build those deep relationships with, that you do the hard work with, that you, like, tackle the challenging things with. Those end up being your people through it all, you know?
A plus, that was the answer you gave me the last time. I really wanted you to also point out that allyships sits with both women and with men, and it's not just one. And but we have to slowly change that. It's more men that makes the decision of being in power, and that's part of the reason why we wrote the book. One of the things you mentioned in the book is your upbringing, Alyssa, and what your mother used to tell you every single day. And for the listeners, I want to drive the conversation here because I think it's so incredibly powerful. So powerful that I now stole that advice and I'm doing it every morning with my three boys. I won't steal your thunder here, but I want to hear that part of what you wrote in the book because, dear listener, there's a very close connection between Alyssa's confidence and her upbringing and a small little item that might be massive on an impact scale, but a small little thing. Can you tell the listeners that story?
Yeah, so it's what's interesting is I shared this with my sister. So my sister and I just have one sibling, have the same mom, obviously, and our mom said this to us both every single day. And she was like, "That's so interesting that you took that and made it kind of your life's mantra." And it didn't really land that way for me. So it may be a nurture nature thing a little bit here, but for what it's worth, I think it's a good piece of advice, and it's something I tell my kids too. So every morning when I went off to school, my mom would say, "Make it a great day. Make it, not have it, right? Have a great day," like we would normally say. And I think I grew up in a family, we lived paycheck to paycheck. We weren't really well off. And so it just reminded me that no matter your circumstances, you can change the outcome. So wherever you're at, think about what you can do with it. It's under your control and to make it better for yourself. So if you don't get the right like the perfect job, how can you make that great? And how can you kind of control your destiny through the opportunities you have in front of you? And that's sort of been the way I've thought about things throughout my whole career. And especially as I got into startup world, that mantra kind of really helped me because there's so much change that happens all the time. And my first startup, I like within the first 3 months, there was like my CMO was no longer there. We had some interim like head of marketing. That person put an ultimatum to the CEO, end up getting fired. And I'm just like, holy crap, all this change was happening in front of me within 3 months. Like, it was a whole different team. And I saw it as opportunity, not as like, this isn't bad. This is a good thing for me. And I just proved myself through it all, earned the CEO's trust. It all happened within 3 months. And at that point I was kind of gold to him. I couldn't do anything wrong. Right. And it really set my career in motion in the startup world. So just being able to see the opportunity, even if it seems like complete disarray, complete chaos, find your way through it by finding your path through it, you know?
Beautifully expressed. My interpretation of it is as well, and it actually goes a little bit with the book title, "Power Without Permission." You have the power already to make the most of the situation. You have the power to drive action no matter what is thrown at you. You make it a great day by not letting the emotion get to you, and instead you take action, micro action, whatever it is, but you do something. You don't become stagnant. So
Yeah.
I think it's an extremely powerful thing, Alyssa. And I'm not kidding. I started saying that. And my second one to my kids is always be curious, ask at least 5 questions, learn something new.
Yeah.
If you combine the two, I think it's going to be massively transformational. But like you said, it's also up to the individual to run with it.
Yeah, exactly. Again, my sister had the same mantra every day, and it just sat with me different. I also had a different, experience in life, so I think it changed. It was something I utilized because it was something I could lean into.
In your chapter, you talk also a lot about having a vision for what you're doing and being very purposeful with living your life and putting yourself in these situations, not only in the moment, but also from a long term perspective. Can you share a little bit about how do you find time to think ahead while you're in the midst of all the craziness that's going on?
Sometimes I don't know. I sometimes I think I look ahead too much, and I have to find satisfaction in the middle where I'm at. That's a really important thing I've learned in my career because I've had so many acquisitions and gone through so much change and had a lot of beginnings and ends that are thrilling and exciting. I think that finding meaning in the middle is where it really matters, right? It's what I've sort of come to learn in all of this, right? Because it's those relationships and the hard work in the middle. Like one company, it was COVID. I had just left a healthcare company that was launching an application that would help with telehealth, right? And we're going into a COVID crisis where telehealth is going to be the new way forward for healthcare organizations. That company skyrocketed, right? I went into a company that was selling into location based businesses. So all these brick and mortar businesses. And they were all closing their doors or like figuring out how to survive this massive crisis that was in front of them. And it was in some ways super thrilling, and I was with some colleagues I'd worked with before, so we had enormous rapport and trust right into the gate, and it was this meaningful middle that I can't even express because it was hard work, and we rolled up our sleeves, and we figured out how to manage this company through this massive change that was happening in the industry, how to help all our clients, how to do the right thing, and through that experience, it was just, like, this perfect storm that came together at that company. It was so much fun. It was thrilling. It was such a meaningful middle for me to go through that with all these people that I'd worked with before. So I think it's about finding meaning in the middle and leaning into the challenges and figuring out how you can solve them alongside your trusted teammates that have your back. And when you can get to that magic moment, it's really fulfilling. So for me, I don't know if that totally answers your question of looking forward, but for me, it's sometimes about settling because I tend to want to look forward too much. And you have to kind of realize what you have and find meaning there if you can.
Do I understand you correctly if you say you're looking forward, but you're making sure you're grounded in the moment, in the present?
Yeah, and really not. Yeah, exactly. And I am looking forward, of course, because in that situation, I'm trying to keep this company afloat and helping it survive the next year or 2 years, help people stay employed that are working for this company, right? So you're definitely looking forward, but you're also in the moment trying to, again, not give up. Just dig in and figure out how to solve things and find that meaningful middle.
If you ever end up in a situation where you feel stressed, frustrated, and you just don't know, like you can really feel it sort of boiling up and it's coming to you, how do you manage through that situation? How do you remain calm?
I mean, for me, I have, like, this unbridled confidence, as I said before, but we're all human, right? So we all have a little like, people can shatter that armor at times and make you doubt yourself and make you a little fearful, and that's a bad place to lead from. If you're leading from doubt or fear, you're not leading well, and so you need to kinda shake yourself out of it, and for me, oftentimes it comes back to I was telling you this story earlier, but I'm writing my own book right now, and about going through all these acquisitions and what it's like and how I survived in the battle stories and like it's well-earned battle scars. And I go back to that book and I sometimes listen to it when I'm feeling that crack in my armor a little bit on self-doubt and I I've recorded every chapter. So that's how I sort of the process I do is I record every chapter and I just listen to it back, listen to my words, listen to my passion and all the things I've accomplished in my career, and it just reminds me what a badass I am. I know that sounds horrible, but sometimes you need to kind of pep rally yourself, especially when you're a leader and you feel a little alone in it all. It's sometimes you need that just little kick in the butt, and just to remember that, like, what is the worst that can happen? If I lose my job, so what? I can get another one. I have so much talent, so much skill that is valuable to so many companies. It's not the end of the world, right? So I can't lead from a place of fear or doubt, because that's not doing myself a good, you know, I'm not doing myself um right, and I'm not doing my team right. So that's something I've used as a tactic, is just sort of go back to where I've come from and remind myself how far I've come and what I've done when people try to shatter that doubt and give me that sense of fear.
I love it. I love it. And we also talked briefly as we were writing this book, and you were writing your chapter. You got so inspired. I don't know if that's when you started writing on your own book, but it was just so amazing witnessing you like, oh, I did this, I did that, and I did like this needs to be a book by itself. And like I saw you go through a process there. But we talked briefly before we started recording here about the therapeutical aspect of doing this, and you used it to pep yourself.
Mm.
But why would you recommend people listening to this podcast to either start writing, start reflecting, journaling, whatever that is? What has it given you?
Yeah, I think even if you don't write a book, journaling from time to time is a good practice. Now, I'm sort of like not doing it daily, but I kind of pick it up and put it down when I need to. Um, but I do think it is super therapeutic. It helps you think through and reflect on those tough challenges in your career and compare them to maybe challenges you're facing in your career right now, because we go through the same things at every company. There's just a kind of this circular motion, right? And so it's just really helpful as you're reflecting on current situations to, like, look back at your past and how you handled it before, and how do you not repeat those mistakes and carry them forward, you know? I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, the self-reflection, just to pinpoint what you're saying, the self-reflection, the narrative you're telling yourself, and
Mhm.
then what are the changes? What is it that I'm going to go do differently the next time? And I witnessed all the other authors go through this. And I went through it myself. First, when I wrote the first few chapters, uh, uh, I was thinking like, can I put this out there? Like this will be embarrassing almost. But then I was like, "Yeah, and of course I should." And it's a very relieving feeling to is like, now it has been said. No one like it is out there. It is what it is. And
Mhm.
I saw all of you go through a very similar process, where some of you, not you, Alyssa, but some of the co-authors of Power Without Permission, they started a process with I can't say this or scratch that or remove that from my story. To now, when I have them on the podcast, they go like you. It's like let's just talk about it open. It just is what it is. Here is what it is. No situation. So the confidence boost that everyone have gotten, it's been incredible from my end to witness that. It's been super interesting.
Well, and also, like, it's that vulnerability that helps us lead better. Like, as soon as we can realize that we're not the only ones going through this stuff, that we're all human, that we all have these vulnerable moments, you lead better. So it's hard to be vulnerable for sure, but it does help you lead better. People can relate to you better.
I think in US and the culture here, vulnerability is not always seen as a good thing, right? So that's why it's hard for people to talk about. I witnessed the most successful and the most inspiring leaders I have been around and founders, business owners, they are open and vulnerable and they don't lead from a place of fear. They lead from an abundance, no ego. And like you said, Alyssa, it's like you can connect with them. You feel connected. You feel safe, right?
Mhm. For sure.
So let's say that we go back 20 years in time. You have an opportunity to meet yourself 20 years ago. And what's the one advice, the one hack, or the one message you would tell yourself that you know today that you did not know 20 years ago?
I would say, I mean, keep up the unbridled confidence, but when someone does try to make you doubt yourself, really, um, remind keep in mind all the things you've done before that have gotten you to this point, and Don't let it bring you down.
Ah, I love that. You said you're journaling from time to time. Are you ever writing down all your wins? I mean, you're writing the book right now, but prior to that, did you actually write down all your wins and document them or
Well, yeah, because because I've changed companies so many times, not sometimes by choice, but I've always kept a pretty, like, up-to-date resume, so through that process, you're always looking at, like, all your successes, and every time I updated my resume, it would be a good reminder of, like, "Wow, I'm pretty good at what I do." Like, this is a pretty amazing resume that a lot of companies would love to have me, so that helps me a little bit. It's just, when you're kind of constantly having to make changes, and sometimes the changes aren't out of your own decision. It just I don't know, you kinda have to always take stock and constantly reevaluate and figure out where you're going. So, I would say in that way, yes, I do. And I mean, as I'm writing my book, the other thing I'm finding is I'm almost like you have to be more vulnerable when you're writing a book so your readers can relate to you and understand. And I'm finding there's so many successes that I'm almost like, okay, I gotta dial back a little bit because my confidence comes through a little bit too much and I need to be more vulnerable because there are a lot of hard-earned lessons I've had, a lot of, like, vulnerable moments, and that's what I really need to lean into to then make the successes seem a little bit more exciting to people and for people to see the full journey. And it's hard because I am I have been pretty successful, and I don't mean that to sound braggy, it's just sort of and I am good about understanding my successes and knowing and celebrating those, so
when you have a batting average like you have that ends up being 5 successful exits, I would argue that that's not a coincidence. That's because you have a mindset or you put yourself in those situations or you have your guard up on something and you don't put yourself in the situations where it turns negative.
Mhm.
There is some secret recipe in there. Have you thought what that secret recipe is?
I mean, I do think there's a little bit of, like, it's just born in you, like, you have it or you don't in some ways, if that makes sense. But if I had I don't know, like, in the startup world especially, you just have to have a high tolerance for risk. You have to, like, love the thrill of, like, trying something and you don't know if it's gonna work and be a little scared in the process. But that drives growth too. So, I think you just kinda have to be okay with the risk. Like, when I showed up for my first startup, I remember I went and interviewed I'm at this, very cush PR job. I've been just working myself up the ladder, but it's getting a bit boring and too comfortable. I'm just not happy. So I show up at the first interview for this startup that I ended up working at, and it's chaos. Like I walk in and there's stuff everywhere, and it's like conference like banners and like garbage and like I'm like, what is this place? It's just complete chaos. And I was a little bit like, okay, I kind of like this. And so you but I was a little nervous, right? And I'm so glad I just took the leap of faith and went for it because within 3 months I was like, "Oh my god, I'm right where I need to be. This is amazing. I love the risk. I love the thrill. I love the everyone's leaving and people are going left and right and I've got new challenges on my desk every single day and no day is different." Like or no day is the same, sorry. I'm like, that is the thrill that I love, and so, if you have that kind of, like, just let it happen and not worry so much, I think if you can let go of all of that fear and really dive in and take a leap of faith, you'll get so much more out of your career and your journey, and it's really fun. I just don't know if everyone's like that, so it's a little bit, I think, a little bit who I am?
I will tell you this though, Alyssa. If you had asked me that question after I've done this process with you and the other 12 amazing,
Yeah.
powerful, badass leaders,
What would you have said?
um, exactly what you said. But I would have said it a little differently, but it's exactly the same. It is fear don't stagnate you.
Mhm.
Instead, you all get curious on what it is and you take small to larger to larger to larger action and you rethink fear as it's just unfamiliar or it's just different, but you don't go all of you have that in common that you don't stop, you just do the opposite, which is go straight against it. It's almost and now most of you who are the co-authors of this book, Power Without Permission, all of you are so good at what you do that the risk levels are like massive of what you can cope and operate with and still get by. And as a result, the common thread for all of you is that when you have life happens to people, partnerships breaks up, marriages, kids sick, death, whatever is going on in people's life, all of you keep going forward because you have the resilience. Nothing slows you guys down anymore. But where did it all start? Exactly like you said. You just you didn't stop because of the fear. You just decided to do something. And
Yeah.
just doing that, climbing one mountain to see the next, to see the next. It's the recurring theme from all the authors.
Yeah, and it's like there's something about, like, when I came to that startup, it was like I was home. It was like welcome home to chaos. Like, I loved it. I loved the not knowing. I loved the just the chaos of it all, and I thrived in that environment. So I don't know. I think there's something to that, and just knowing that it can be hard to make a change in your life or do something that is uncomfortable, but I don't know. Sometimes you gotta take a leap of faith.
You got to just do it. Okay, let's go into rapid fire question. I ask you a short statement, a short question, first things that come to your mind. No candid answer. Like it's not a PR discussion. Let's just give me the answer. First thing that comes to mind, okay? What's one belief you retired?
One belief I retired, I would say, is, um that conformity equals success. To conform is not success, I don't think.
Ah, perfect. Remain the rebellion.
Yes, be a rebel.
Be a rebel. I love it. Be who you are. I
Break the
love that answer.
norms. Just go for it. Yeah. Don't be
I
afraid to
love
just
it.
mhm.
What's one rule that you have broken at one time or multiple times in order for you to improve the outcomes?
Mm. I I would say trying to keep work relationships professional. Like, at times, you just need to break that barrier and get into the real cusp of what makes us human. And I think that really became true during COVID times when all of a sudden our kids are showing up on cameras, and I don't know, it just, like, brought us all closer together a little bit in some ways. So, I don't think work relationships always need to be purely professional. So sometimes you gotta break that one, I think.
Finish the sentence. Power without permission means.
I think make it a great day. Making your day without permission. Yeah.
And again, back to your story about your mother and make it a great day for any listeners out there. Like, you got to read Alyssa's story. All of them are amazing, but that one, like I said, it changed me as well. What's one micro ritual you do before you have a hard conversation with someone?
I would say I just remind myself that we're both people at the end of the day, and we both have the same goal. Like, it a lot of times you end up in conflict with people at work, but at the end of the day, you're on the same team, right? You're working towards something together. You have some common ground, so finding that common ground is, I think, critical.
Extremely critical. And people, which is back to your chapter and having a vision, right? So
Mm.
you have to have a common goal and you have to fight for it. There is going to be individuals coming in, but it's that common goal. Okay, last one. If you don't adapt, you.
You let the circumstances write your story for you.
I'm just
Again,
going
it
to end
goes
it
back
there.
to my make it a great day. You literally
Yeah.
can't just conform. You can't just settle for what you're given. You have to adapt means to break through it all and figure out your path forward that meets your desires and your passions without conforming. Don't let the circumstances define you.
Amazing, Alyssa. I always learn something from you every time we talk. Where can the listeners find you and who should be reaching out to you?
Well, hopefully I don't know when my book's gonna come out. I'm working on it. It's gonna be a good book, I think, because it's in the midst of, like, you know, the struggle. I'm still in it. I'm still in my journey, and I think that's what makes it pretty powerful, and I'm not a top level leader. I'm in the middle, right? Like many of our readers will be, and so I think that's pretty powerful, and listeners of your podcast. But I'm on LinkedIn, so follow me there, and then I'll be posting about my book soon. It's probably gonna be a ways away. It's a passion project on the side, and I enjoy it and come back to it month to month, and it's gonna take some time, but it will happen.
But now you put it out in the world, so now you don't have a
Now
choice
I'm
but to deliver,
manifesting it,
right?
and that's an important thing too. You've gotta manifest what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alyssa, it's been amazing having you on the podcast, having you as a co-author of this book. Your story is very powerful. You know, I'm a big fan of you. For the
Likewise.
listeners out there,
Fan of you too, Andreas. You're great.
thank you. Likewise, we do.
Right.
For the listeners out there, if this moved you, if you think this can move another individual and make a difference in their life, please support the podcast by sharing it, as well as going to Apple Podcast and leaving a 5-star review. Also, you will hear more about Power Without Permission, and you can go to leadersadapt.com/book, sign up for the waiting list. The book is getting released September 25th. The stories are raw, they're unfiltered, moving, and it's been so rewarding writing this book with everyone. Last thing, remember, in leadership, we adapt and thrive, or we don't survive. Until next time, keep adapting.